Chosen one, are you tired of feeling like you're living someone else's life? Are you exhausted from waiting for a breakthrough that never comes? Are you done pretending that the emptiness inside doesn't scream for something more? Chosen one, I don't know where this finds you, maybe sitting alone with your coffee at 3 a.m., maybe listening late into the night while the world sleeps. But hear me clearly. This message was sent for you. The 28th of June is no ordinary day. Here's what they don't tell you in church. While everyone else is living in spiritual slumber, your soul has been vibrating like a compass needle, spinning wildly before it locks onto true north. You've felt it, haven't you? That unshakable sense that something massive is approaching. Not fear, not panic, but movement. You're not imagining it, you're sensing the shift. If something in your spirit already feels this, stirring comment below. I receive this. Don't just watch, engage. Because this isn't entertainment, this is alignment. Listen for months, maybe years. You've been walking through what felt like spiritual winter. Doors slammed shut, prayers echoing in silence, dreams deferred until they felt like mockery. But what if I told you that every closed door was God protecting you from settling for less than His divine timing? What if every delay was preparation for this moment? The 28th of June isn't marked on any earthly calendar as significant, but in the realm of the spirit, where time bends and destiny awakens, it pulses with prophetic energy. The veil between the natural and supernatural grows thin. What's been hidden in the shadows steps into the light. You've been chosen to receive this message because your spiritual DNA carries something the sleeping world cannot detect. While others scroll past, something in your core recognizes truth when it speaks. Thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. But here's the sobering truth. This window won't stay open forever. The 28th of June approaches whether you're ready or not. The universe doesn't send RSVPs, it sends moments. And this moment right now, as these words penetrate your spirit, this is your invitation to step into what you've been praying for. The question isn't whether the shift is coming. The question is, will you be awake enough to receive it? Stay with me. What comes next will change everything. Why do you feel so different from everyone around you? Why does your heart ache with a longing that has no name? Why have you carried burdens that would crush others, yet somehow you're still standing here today? Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. That feeling of being an outsider, that sense of walking through life like you're meant for something bigger, that ache that keeps you awake at 3 a.m. searching for answers, none of it is random. None of it is punishment. You have been set apart. Before the 28th of June ever marked a page on your calendar, before time itself began to tick, God had etched this date into His eternal plan, not for the world, but for you. The prophet Jeremiah heard these words, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." That wasn't just for Jeremiah. That was for every soul who carries the mark of the chosen. And you, sitting here right now, feeling the weight of these words in your chest, you carry that mark. But let's get brutally honest about what that really means. Being chosen doesn't mean your life has been easy. Being set apart doesn't mean you've been protected from pain. In fact, it's been the opposite, hasn't it? You've endured storms others never saw. You've carried burdens you never named aloud. Some nights, your only prayer was a tear that fell onto your pillow while the world slept peacefully around you. You've watched others coast through life while you've had to fight for every inch of progress. You've seen doors slam in your face while lesser qualified people walked through open ones. You've probably asked God why. Why the extra struggle? Why the deeper pain? Why does everything have to be so much harder for you? Here's the truth that will change everything. What you thought was abandonment was actually alignment. Every closed door was God protecting you from settling for less than His divine timing. Every rejection was redirection toward something greater. Every painful season was preparation for this moment, the 28th of June, when everything you've been through finally makes sense. Think about Moses. Here was a man chosen by God to lead an entire nation out of bondage. But where was he at 40? A murderer running for his life. Where was he at 60? A forgotten shepherd in the middle of nowhere. For 40 years, Moses tended sheep in obscurity while God refined him in the wilderness. The world would have written him off, too old, too scarred, too much baggage. But God doesn't measure time the way we do. Moses didn't start his real calling until he was 80 years old. 80. And God still used every wrinkle, every scar, every quiet year that no one applauded. Because God doesn't waste anything in the life of His chosen. You may look in the mirror and see only your age, your mistakes, your missed opportunities. But God sees His masterpiece. He sees the wisdom etched in those lines around your eyes. He sees the strength forged in the fire of your trials. He sees the compassion born from your own broken places. Your gray hair isn't a sign of decline, it's a crown of glory. Proverbs 16:31 declares it. Gray hair is a crown of splendor. It is attained in the way of righteousness. Every year you've lived, every battle you've survived, every moment you chose to keep believing when everything screamed at you to quit, all of it has been preparation. But here's what separates the chosen from the crowd. We don't just endure suffering, we transform it. We don't just survive trials, we emerge with gifts that can only be forged in fire. The depth of your pain has become the measure of your power. The weight of your burdens has become the strength of your testimony. This is why you've always felt different. This is why you've never quite fit in with the shallow conversations and surface-level living that satisfies others. Your soul has been calibrated for deeper things. Your spirit has been tuned to heavenly frequencies that the spiritually deaf cannot hear. And now, as the 28th of June approaches, God is calling you out of the wilderness. Just like Moses heard his name called from a burning bush, you're hearing your name called through this very message. The season of hidden preparation is ending. The time of public purpose is beginning. But I need you to understand something crucial. This calling comes with a cost. Being chosen means being different. It means standing alone when others won't stand at all. It means carrying light into dark places where people prefer the shadows. It means speaking truth when lies are more comfortable. Some of your relationships won't survive this awakening. Some people in your life right now will try to pull you back into the box they're comfortable keeping you in. They'll call your new sense of purpose too much or unrealistic. They'll remind you of your age, your limitations, your past failures. But remember this, the same people who question your calling today will celebrate your victory tomorrow. The same voices that whisper you're too old are the ones that will marvel at what God does through your obedience. You see, God specializes in the impossible. He takes what the world discards and makes it His showcase. Sarah laughed when God promised her a child at 90. Abraham was called to father nations when he could barely father one child. David was overlooked by his own father when the prophet came looking for a king. Your setbacks haven't disqualified you, they've distinguished you. Your age hasn't expired your anointing, it's matured it. Your scars haven't made you worthless, they've made you priceless to a world that needs healing. But here's the urgent truth that should make your heart race. The 28th of June is not just another day. It's your day, the culmination of everything God has been preparing in the secret place of your heart. The moment when your hidden calling steps into the light. The The question that will determine your destiny is this: will you answer the call, or will you let fear convince you it's too late? God doesn't shout through headlines. He whispers through timing, and the 28th of June is a whisper growing louder. Dear chosen one, let me share something that's going to shake you to your core. While the world argues about politics, while the media fills your mind with noise, while your neighbors chase after things that rust and decay, God has been orchestrating something far more profound. Something that's been building in the spiritual realm for months, maybe years. You've felt it, haven't you? That restlessness that won't leave you alone. That sense that you're waiting for something but you can't name what it is. That disconnect from the world's chaos, like you're watching everything through glass. They told you it was depression. They told you it was anxiety. They told you to get busy, stay distracted, fill your calendar. But what if I told you that feeling wasn't a malfunction, it was calibration? What if your spirit has been tuning itself to frequencies the sleeping world cannot hear? In Amos 3-7, Scripture declares, "Surely the Lord God does nothing unless he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets." God doesn't move in silence. He doesn't catch his children off guard. He prepares, he reveals, he warns. And the 28th of June is that warning crystallizing into reality. Look around your life right now. Look at the patterns. Haven't doors been closing that you desperately wanted to walk through? Haven't relationships been shifting, falling away, leaving you feeling more alone than you felt in decades? Haven't your prayers felt like they're hitting a ceiling, bouncing back unanswered? You thought God was distant. You thought he'd forgotten your address. But what if every closed door was him clearing your path? What if every removal was preparation? What if every delay was divine protection, keeping you from settling for less than his perfect timing? The 28th of June isn't just another square on your kitchen calendar. It's not another Thursday you'll forget by Friday. It's a hinge moment, the kind Scripture speaks of when it says, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven." Ecclesiastes 3-1. But here's what most people miss. God's seasons don't announce themselves with trumpet blasts. They arrive like dawn, gradually, then suddenly, then undeniably. And if you're not watching, if you're not prepared, if you're still stuck in yesterday's patterns, you'll miss it entirely. Think about Noah. God didn't tell him it was going to rain tomorrow. He told him to build an ark while the sun was shining. Think about Joseph. God didn't give him a 7-day weather forecast. He gave him 7 years to prepare for famine while Egypt was drowning in abundance. The prepared survived. The unprepared perished. What's coming on the 28th of June isn't chaos, it's clarity. It's the fog lifting. It's the veil tearing. It's God saying, enough waiting, enough preparation, it's time. But here's the uncomfortable truth that's going to make some of you want to click away. Not everyone who hears this message will receive it. Some will scroll past this moment and return to their routine. They'll go back to their Netflix, their complaints, their comfortable numbness. Others will rise with a fire they cannot explain, a knowing they cannot deny. Which one are you? Because in Matthew 24-40-41, Jesus painted a picture that should terrify every lukewarm believer. Then 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding grain, one will be taken and one left. Same field, same task, même moment, différentes destinées. The difference wasn't their location, it wasn't their occupation, it wasn't even their theology. The difference was their readiness, their awareness, their spiritual sensitivity to recognize when God was moving. The 28th of June is your field. The 28th of June is your grinding stone. The 28th of June is your moment of separation between those who are spiritually awake and those who are sleepwalking through the most crucial season of their lives. You've been feeling it building, haven't you? That tension in your chest when you pray, that urgency that wakes you at 3 a.m., that voice that whispers, something's coming, something's changing, something's about to break open. That's not your imagination, that's not your age, that's not your medication, that's the Holy Spirit preparing your spirit for what's ahead. But preparation requires more than just feeling it. It requires response. It requires alignment. It requires you to stop living like tomorrow is guaranteed and start living like today is all you have to get ready. Some of you are sitting there thinking, but what exactly is going to happen on the 28th of June? And I understand that question. Your logical mind wants specifics, wants guarantees, wants a detailed itinerary from heaven. But God doesn't work that way. He gives you enough light for the next step, not the whole staircase. He reveals his plans to those who trust his timing, not those who demand his timetable. What I can tell you is this: the 28th of June is a door, a portal. A moment when the spiritual and natural realms collide with unprecedented force. Some will walk through into their destiny. Others will watch it close and spend the rest of their lives wondering, what if? The question that should be burning in your heart right now isn't what's going to happen. The question should be, am I ready for whatever God is about to do? Because ready or not, the 28th of June is coming. And when it arrives, it will separate those who have been preparing from those who have been procrastinating. Dear chosen one, I need to tell you something that might sting at first, but will heal you in the end. You've been carrying a lie for far too long. A lie that whispers, you're too old, too late, too forgotten. A lie that says your best days are behind you. But what if I told you that every single thing you've endured, every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every door that slammed shut in your face, what if none of it was wasted? What if it was all preparation for this exact moment? You see, there's something the enemy doesn't want you to understand about your story. He's convinced you that your trials were punishment, that your pain was proof God had abandoned you. But that's the very lie that's kept you in spiritual prison. Here's the truth that will set you free. You didn't suffer because God was far. You suffered because he was near. Think about it. When a goldsmith refines precious metal, does he walk away and ignore it? No, he watches it intensely, never taking his eyes off the process, because he knows exactly when the impurities have burned away and pure gold emerges. Malachi 3:3 tells us, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver." You thought those trials were breaking you, but God was making you. Every midnight hour when you cried alone, thinking no one heard, he was there, collecting every tear in his bottle, just like Psalm 56:8 promises. Every prayer that felt like it bounced off the ceiling was actually piercing the heavens, building something you couldn't see yet. But here's where it gets personal, and I need you to really hear this. How many times have you looked in the mirror and thought, I'm 65, 70, 75, surely God's finished with me now? How many times have you watched younger people step into their calling while you felt like you were sitting on the bench? You've believed the lie of disqualification. You thought your window of opportunity had closed. You thought you missed your chance. You thought God had moved on to someone younger, faster, more relevant. But what if I told you that everything you see as a liability, God sees as an asset? What if your age isn't your disqualification, it's your qualification? Think about this. When did God call Moses to deliver Israel? At 80 years old. When did Abraham receive his greatest promise? At 100. When did Anna the prophetess recognize the Messiah? At 84, after decades of waiting and watching in the temple. Your wrinkles aren't marks of defeat, they're medals of endurance. Your gray hair isn't a sign you're finished, it's a crown of wisdom that only comes through surviving what would have destroyed lesser souls. But here's what's about to shock you to your core. All those years when you felt invisible, forgotten, passed over, you weren't being ignored. You were being prepared. While others were building their kingdoms in the spotlight, you were being forged in the secret place. While others were chasing applause, you were learning to hear God's whisper. Every disappointment carved out more room in your heart for compassion. Every betrayal taught you to trust God alone. Every loss showed you what really matters. Every delay was God's protection, keeping you from settling for anything less than His perfect timing. You didn't miss your window. You are the window. The 28th of June isn't coming to mock your age, it's coming to reveal your purpose. This isn't about what you can't do anymore. This is about what only you can do now, with the depth that only decades of walking with God can provide. Your generation has something this world desperately needs: authentic faith that's been tested in the fire. Not Instagram spirituality, not conference room Christianity, but raw, real, unshakable trust that only comes from surviving hell and still praising God. The enemy wants you to believe your time has passed because he knows what's inside you. He knows that when a seasoned saint finally steps into their full calling, mountains move. He knows that your prayers carry weight because they're backed by years of proven faithfulness. But here's the urgency you need to grasp. This moment won't last forever. God is positioning His mature warriors for one final powerful move. But it requires you to stop believing the lie that you're too late and start embracing the truth that you're right on time. The question isn't whether you have enough years left. The question is, will you use the years you have to step into what you were truly born for? Because something is stirring in the spiritual realm, and it's not random that you're hearing this message now. The 28th of June approaches like a divine reset button, and God is calling His seasoned soldiers to the front lines. The shaking you've endured wasn't your destruction, it was your preparation. And what's coming next will prove that every trial was worth it. Are you ready to discover why you had to go through everything you went through to get to where you are right now? You're doing it all wrong. I know that hits hard, but stay with me. You've been taught that preparation means panic, that readiness requires running around like a chicken with its head cut off, that when God moves, you need to hustle harder, pray louder, do more, be more, achieve more. But what if I told you that everything you've been conditioned to believe about spiritual preparation is backwards? What if the very thing that's exhausting you is the exact opposite of what God requires? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. The shift coming on the 28th of June will not knock on your door like an impatient salesman. It won't shout through a megaphone or flash neon signs in the sky. It will whisper into your spirit, and if you're not still enough to hear it, you'll miss the very moment you've been praying for your entire life. Psalm 46:10 doesn't say, "Be busy and know that I am God." It commands, "Be still and know that I am God." That's not a suggestion, that's a divine strategy. But here's what's breaking my heart. I see so many of God's chosen ones running themselves into the ground, thinking motion equals devotion, thinking noise equals power, thinking if they just work harder, pray longer, push more, they'll somehow force God's hand to move faster. Dear soul, you're trying to microwave what God is slow cooking. Think about the eagle. When storm clouds gather and winds rage at 100 miles per hour, what does the eagle do? Does it flap frantically? Does it fight against the current number? It locks its wings in perfect stillness and lets the very storm that threatens to destroy it lift it higher than it could ever fly on its own strength. You are that eagle. The 28th of June is that storm. But only if you know how to be still. Right now, your mind is probably screaming, "But I need to do something. I need to prepare. I need to get ready." And that desperation, that frantic energy, that need to control, that's exactly what will cause you to miss what God is orchestrating. Jesus didn't defeat the devil by running around the wilderness. He defeated him in 40 days of stillness, fasting, and focus. Moses didn't receive the 10 Commandments while rushing up and down Mount Sinai. He received them in the quiet, holy presence of God. If this word is stirring something deep in your spirit, write this date down, the 28th of June, 2025. Let it be your altar. Let it be your sacred reminder. But I need to ask you something that might sting. When was the last time you sat in complete silence for more than 5 minutes without reaching for your phone, without thinking about your to-do list, without your mind racing to the next problem you need to solve? When was the last time you were truly, deeply still? Because here's the hard truth that nobody wants to face. If you can't handle 5 minutes of silence, how will you handle the voice of the Almighty when He speaks on the 28th of June? The noise in your life isn't just distraction, it's destruction. It's drowning out the very frequency heaven is broadcasting on. Every notification, every worry, every urgent task that pulls your attention away from the center of your soul is stealing your ability to receive what God is trying to download into your spirit. You don't need to do more. You need to become more still. You don't need to add to your schedule. You need to subtract from the chaos. You don't need to pray louder. You need to listen deeper. Martha was busy serving Jesus, but Mary was still receiving from Him. And when Martha complained about Mary's stillness, what did Jesus say? Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Luke 10:42. What are you choosing right now? The Martha life of endless motion or the Mary life of sacred stillness? Because on the 28th of June, when the veil between heaven and earth grows thin, when the supernatural bleeds into the natural, when God moves in ways that will leave the busy scrambling and the still soaring, which one will you be? I'm watching a generation of believers burn out before their breakthrough because they're trying to earn what God wants to give freely. They're sweating for what He wants to whisper. They're shouting for what He wants to share in the secret place. Your preparation for the 28th of June doesn't happen in the marketplace. It happens in the quiet place. It doesn't happen in the noise of the world. It happens in the silence of your soul. Start now, tonight, tomorrow morning. Find a place where you can be completely alone with God. No agenda, no requests, no demands. Just be. Just breathe. Just listen. Because the shift that's coming isn't just going to change what's around you, it's going to reveal what's within you. And if your inner world is chaos, you won't recognize the voice of peace when it speaks. But if you learn the weapon of stillness, if you master the art of sacred silence, the 28th of June won't find you panicked and unprepared. It will find you positioned and powerful, ready to receive what only the still can hear. The question that will determine everything is this: will you be still enough to hear heaven when it whispers your name? You know what breaks my heart? Walking into churches across America and seeing rows of people who've forgotten they carry the fire of the Almighty. They sing the songs, they say the prayers, but somewhere along the way, they traded their spiritual authority for a seat in the pew. But not you. You're different. You feel it, don't you? That restless stirring that won't let you settle for Sunday morning Christianity when Monday through Saturday your soul is crying out for more. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. In every generation, God appoints those who don't need applause. They just need alignment. You, yes, you are one of them. The Bible is crystal clear about this pattern. Look at Esther. She wasn't chosen because she was the prettiest girl in the kingdom. She was positioned for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. One woman, one moment, an entire nation's survival hanging in the balance. Do you think that was coincidence? Do you think God just randomly picked her name out of a hat? Number. She was prepared through every trial, every rejection, every lonely night in the palace when she felt like she didn't belong. Every moment was training for the moment that mattered most. And what about Daniel? torn from everything familiar, thrown into a foreign land, surrounded by people who worshipped false gods. But here's what most people miss. His greatest revelations didn't come when he was comfortable. They came through isolation, through pressure, through seasons when heaven seemed silent and hell seemed loud. Daniel 2:19 tells us that God revealed the mysteries of the king's dream to Daniel in a night vision, not in the temple, not during corporate worship, in the quiet, in the dark, when Daniel was alone with his God. You've been there, haven't you? Those 3 a.m. moments when you're wide awake, wrestling with questions that don't have easy answers. When everyone else is sleeping but your spirit is on fire. Those aren't accidents. Those are appointments. The world thinks influence is measured by followers and platforms. They think power comes from being seen, being heard, being applauded. But heaven operates by a different economy. Heaven sees influence in your living room, where you pray in secret and shift atmospheres in silence, where you intercede for a nation that doesn't even know your name. Look at Anna the prophetess. Luke 2:36-38 shows us a woman who waited 84 years in the temple. 84 years, can you imagine? She could have given up at year 10. She could have walked away at year 30. She could have said, God, I'm too old for this at year 70. But she didn't. She held her post. She kept her watch. And because she did, she became one of the first human beings to recognize the Messiah when he walked into that temple as a baby. One moment, 8 decades of preparation, one divine encounter that changed everything. That's the pattern, beloved. That's how God works. He takes the overlooked, the underestimated, the ones the world has written off, and he positions them at the intersection of time and eternity. But here's what's got me fired up tonight. We're living in that intersection right now. The 28th of June isn't just another date on the calendar. It's a convergence point. A moment when the spiritual climate shifts, and those who've been waiting in the shadows step into their season. You feel it building, don't you? That sense that something massive is about to break loose in the realm of the spirit. You've been in preparation long enough. You've been in the wilderness long enough. You've been wondering if God forgot about you long enough. He didn't forget. He was forging you. Every sleepless night when you couldn't turn off your burden for this nation that was training. Every time you felt the weight of spiritual warfare when others were oblivious, that was preparation. Every moment you chose to pray instead of complain, to seek God instead of man's approval, that was positioning. The watchmen are rising, not the famous ones, not the ones with the biggest platforms or the loudest voices, the hidden ones, the faithful ones, the ones who've learned to hear God's whisper above the world's roar. Ezekiel 33:6 warns us what happens when the watchman sees danger coming but fails to blow the trumpet. The blood is on his hands. But verse 9 promises that if the watchman warns the people, he has delivered his soul. You're not reading this by accident. You're not feeling this stirring by coincidence. The Spirit of the living God is awakening something in you that's been dormant too long. The question isn't whether you're qualified. The question is whether you're willing. Because ready or not, the moment is here. The alarm is sounding. The trumpet is about to blow. Will you answer the call that's been echoing in your spirit, or will you let someone else take your place on the wall? Let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. There are moments in history when heaven opens its hand and destiny pours down like rain. The 28th of June is one of those moments. But here's what terrifies me, and it should terrify you too. Most people will miss it entirely. Not because they weren't invited, not because God didn't call their name, but because they were too busy, too distracted, too comfortable in their spiritual mediocrity to recognize the voice of the Almighty when He whispered their destiny. You think I'm being dramatic? Let me ask you this. How many times have you felt that stirring in your spirit, That divine nudge pushing you towards something greater, and you said maybe tomorrow. How many times has God opened a door, and you stood frozen in the hallway of indecision until it slowly creaked shut? Don't wait for the world to fall apart to wake up. Don't need a crisis to find your clarity. Because here's the brutal truth that most preachers won't tell you from their comfortable pulpits. When God moves and you don't, it's not just delay, it's disobedience. Every moment you hesitate is a moment someone else could step into the blessing that had your name written on it. You want to know what happens when you miss God's timing? Look at the children of Israel. They stood at the edge of the promised land, milk and honey, just one step away, and they said, "We need more time to think about it." 40 years. 40 years they wandered in circles because they missed their moment. An entire generation died in the wilderness, never tasting what God had prepared for them. That wasn't God being cruel. That was the consequence of hesitation when heaven was ready to move. But you say, "I'm different. I would never miss God's call." Really? Then why are you still sitting in the same spiritual desert you were in 5 years ago? Why are your prayers still bouncing off the ceiling? Why does your soul still feel like it's screaming for something more? I'll tell you why. Because you've been treating God's invitations like dinner reservations, something you can reschedule when it's more convenient. Esther almost stayed silent when her people faced genocide. She had every excuse. She was comfortable, she was safe, she had a good life in the palace. But Mordecai shattered her complacency with these words, "Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" If she had missed that moment, if she had chosen comfort over calling, an entire nation would have perished. Moses almost said no when God called him from the burning bush. He had a list of excuses longer than the Mississippi River. "I can't speak well. I'm not qualified. Send someone else." But God wasn't looking for perfection. He was looking for obedience. If Moses had walked away from that bush, the Israelites would still be making bricks in Egypt. Jonah ran. He actually bought a ticket and sailed in the opposite direction when God called him to Nineveh. He thought he could hide from the creator of the universe. 3 days in the belly of a whale taught him otherwise. But here's what breaks my heart. Even after Jonah's rebellion, grace still called. Even after his cowardice, mercy still pursued. And yet, not everyone gets a second chance like Jonah. You see, there's something about divine timing that most people don't understand. God's moments aren't infinite. His windows don't stay open forever. There comes a point when the door closes, when the season shifts, when the opportunity passes to someone else who was paying attention. Right now, as I speak these words, there are people listening who missed their moment 5 years ago. They can feel it in their bones, that regret, that knowing that they were standing at the crossroads of destiny and they chose the safe path. They chose comfort over calling. They chose fear over faith. The phone rang, but they didn't answer. The door opened, but they didn't walk through. The voice whispered, but they pretended they didn't hear. And now they're living with the haunting question, what if? What if I had said yes? What if I had trusted God's timing instead of my own understanding? What if I had stepped out of the boat like Peter instead of staying safe in my small world? But here's what I need you to understand, chosen one. The 28th of June isn't just another date on your calendar. It's not just another Sunday that slides by unnoticed. This is a convergence, a moment when the spiritual realm presses against our natural world with such intensity that even the spiritually deaf can hear heaven's heartbeat. The question isn't whether this moment will come. It's already in motion. The wheels of destiny are already turning. The question is whether you'll be awake enough to recognize it when it arrives at your doorstep. Because I'm telling you right now, and you can take this to the bank, there are assignments with your name on them that will be redistributed if you're not ready. There are blessings that will go to someone else who was prepared when you were procrastinating. There are doors that will swing open for the person who was watching while you were sleeping. So what happens if you miss it? You don't just miss a moment, you miss a lifetime. You don't just miss an opportunity, you miss your purpose. You don't just miss a blessing, you miss your legacy. The clock is ticking, and heaven is watching. Will you be ready when your moment arrives? You know what breaks my heart? Watching God's chosen ones walk around apologizing for their own anointing, questioning their own calling, doubting the very signs heaven placed on their lives like spiritual fingerprints. But I'm about to shatter that doubt forever. Some of you woke up on the 28th of June, and you couldn't stop crying. Tears with no explanation, no tragedy, no loss, just an overwhelming sense that something eternal had shifted inside your chest. Others felt peace so unnatural, so otherworldly, it actually scared you. A stillness that made no sense in the chaos of your circumstances. And some of you were attacked harder than ever. Sudden sickness, financial pressure out of nowhere, relationships imploding without warning, family members turning cold, technology failing. Everything that could go wrong, went wrong. Listen to me carefully. These were not coincidences. These were confirmations. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on people who don't matter. Hell doesn't mobilize against the ordinary. When Satan increases the pressure, it's because heaven is about to increase your position. 1 Peter 5-8 tells us the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. But here's what they don't teach you in Sunday school. Lions don't hunt gazelles, they hunt the strongest in the herd. You've been marked, chosen one, and the proof isn't in what you've gained, it's in what you've survived. Think about this for a moment. How many times should you have broken? How many storms should have drowned you? How many betrayals should have destroyed your faith? Yet here you are, still breathing, still believing, still showing up when lesser souls would have quit 100 miles ago. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's divine preservation. You've spent years wondering, God, did I miss it? Did I miss my moment, my purpose, my breakthrough? The answer is no. You didn't miss the shift. The shift waited for you. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says there's a time for everything under heaven. But what they don't tell you is that God's timing isn't just about seasons, it's about preparation. Every delay was a setup. Every detour was divine strategy. Every closed door was protection from settling for less than His perfect will. You think you've been wandering in the wilderness. Moses wandered for 40 years before he led a nation to freedom. You think you've been forgotten. Joseph sat in prison for years before he ruled Egypt. You think your pain has been pointless? Job lost everything before God gave him double. The wilderness wasn't your punishment. It was your university. But here's where most people miss it. They're looking for external proof, a burning bush, a voice from heaven, a miracle that makes the evening news. But the greatest miracles aren't the ones that make headlines. They're the ones that happen in the hidden places of your heart. Your ability to forgive when forgiveness seemed impossible. That's supernatural. Your strength to keep praying when prayers felt like they hit the ceiling. That's divine grace. Your refusal to become bitter when life handed you every reason to be angry. That's the fruit of the Spirit working through flesh and blood. Stop waiting for the proof. You are the proof. Your breath after all you've endured. That's the miracle. Your faith after all you've questioned. That's the testimony. Your love after all you've lost. That's the evidence that God's hand has been on your life from the very beginning. Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. You weren't an accident. You weren't a mistake. You weren't born to be ordinary. You were crafted in heaven's workshop, designed for this exact moment in history." And the 28th of June wasn't just another day on the calendar. It was a spiritual marker, a divine timestamp, the moment heaven said, "Now, release the next level of their calling." You know what terrifies the kingdom of darkness? It's not your perfection, it's your persistence. It's not your strength, it's your surrender. It's not what you've accomplished, it's what you've overcome. Every scar tells a story of survival. Every tear watered seeds of purpose. Every broken place became a window for his light to shine through. 2 Corinthians 4-7 reminds us that we carry this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. Your cracks aren't flaws, they're how the light gets in. But here's the part that will revolutionize how you see yourself. You are not just the recipient of a miracle, you are the miracle others are waiting for. Right now, someone is praying for breakthrough, and you're the answer walking around in human skin. Someone is asking God for a sign, and you're the confirmation they need to keep believing. Stop shrinking. Stop apologizing. Stop questioning whether you're really called. The evidence is written in every sunrise you've witnessed after nights you thought would never end. It's documented in every relationship you've healed, every prayer you've whispered, every act of kindness you've extended when you had nothing left to give. You are the sign others are waiting for. Your story is the sermon someone needs to hear. Your survival is the proof that God still does the impossible. But if you're still doubting, if you're still questioning whether this message is really for you, let me ask you this. What made you click on this video? What drew you to this exact moment? What stirred in your spirit when you heard the words the 28th of June? That wasn't algorithm. That was assignment. That wasn't chance. That was calling. The question isn't whether you've been marked. The question is, what are you going to do with the mark now that you recognize it? You know what's fascinating about how God moves? Hollywood got it wrong. They show us burning bushes and parted seas, thunder and lightning splitting the sky. But most of the time, God doesn't flip tables. Sometimes he just rearranges chairs. And you've been feeling it, haven't you? That strange sensation that everything familiar is slowly shifting. People who used to call you every week haven't reached out in months. Opportunities that once excited you now feel hollow, meaningless. Dreams you chased for years suddenly taste like cardboard in your mouth. You thought something was wrong with you. You blamed yourself. You wondered if you were losing your mind, your passion, your purpose. But what if I told you that what feels like loss is actually recalibration? Listen carefully. When God prepares to elevate his chosen ones, he doesn't send a memo. He doesn't announce the renovation. He just starts moving things. Quietly, strategically, with surgical precision. Think about it. How many relationships have naturally faded from your life in the past year? Not through drama or conflict, but through a gentle drifting apart. How many doors that used to swing wide open for you now seem locked? How many things that once brought you joy now leave you feeling empty, restless, searching for something you can't even name? That's not confusion, dear chosen one. That's your old spiritual frequency falling silent. You've been retuned. What used to fit now suffocates. The Apostle Paul understood this divine rearrangement when he wrote, "Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new." But here's what they don't teach you in Sunday school. That transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens in whispers, in gentle removals, in the slow, methodical clearing of spiritual clutter you didn't even know was blocking your path. Remember when Jesus told the rich young ruler to sell everything and follow him? The man walked away sad because he couldn't let go. But what if Jesus was actually doing him a favor? What if those possessions weren't just wealth? They were weights, anchors keeping him from his divine assignment. Now look at your life through that lens. What has God been gently removing? What connections have grown cold? What opportunities have dried up? What passions have lost their fire? You've been calling it disappointment. God calls it preparation. See, here's the truth that will shake you to your core. God never takes anything from you that isn't blocking your breakthrough. Every person who exits your life, every door that closes, every dream that dies, it's making room. Room for what's coming on the 28th of June. But most people miss this completely. They're so busy mourning what's leaving that they can't see what's arriving. They're holding on to yesterday's manna while God is preparing tomorrow's feast. Isaiah 43:19 says, "Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? But here's the part that haunts me. Shall you not know it?" God is asking if you're awake enough to recognize His handiwork when it's happening right in front of you. Because right now, as I'm speaking these words, the deep reordering is accelerating. That restlessness you feel, that's not anxiety. That's anticipation. Your spirit knows something your mind hasn't figured out yet. You're being prepared for an upgrade your current circle can't comprehend. Think about Moses. 40 years in the wilderness. 40 years before God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. Do you think Moses enjoyed tending sheep after growing up as a prince? Do you think he understood why God had stripped away his palace life, his Egyptian connections, his royal privileges? But when the burning bush moment came, Moses was ready. Not because the wilderness had been comfortable, but because it had been necessary. Every relationship God had removed, every door He had closed, every privilege He had stripped away, it was all preparation for a calling so massive that the old Moses could never have carried it. And that's exactly what's happening to you right now. The people leaving your life, they couldn't go where you're going. The opportunities drying up, they would have kept you trapped in a smaller version of yourself. The dreams losing their luster, they were too small for what God has planned. You see, most Christians live their entire lives in spiritual survival mode. They settle for the familiar because the familiar feels safe. They keep friends who drain them because loneliness scares them more than mediocrity. They chase dreams that barely stretch them because big dreams require big faith, and big faith feels risky. But you're not most Christians. You're chosen. And chosen ones don't get to stay comfortable. The deep reordering isn't just happening to you, it's happening for you. God is creating space in your life, in your heart, in your schedule, in your emotional bandwidth. He's clearing the stage for something so magnificent that your current capacity couldn't contain it. So stop fighting the emptiness. Stop trying to fill the gaps with old connections that no longer fit. Stop forcing yourself to feel excited about opportunities that leave your spirit cold. Instead, ask yourself this haunting question: what if everything that's leaving is making room for everything you've been praying for? What if the 28th of June isn't bringing something new into your cluttered life, but into your cleared life, your prepared life, your surrendered life? The shift is already happening. The question is, are you fighting it or flowing with it? You thought you were alone, didn't you? Sitting in your living room in Queens or on your porch in Birmingham, watching the world spiral into chaos and wondering if God had forgotten about people like you. People with grey hair and deep faith. People who remember when this country still prayed. Let me shatter that lie right now. At this very moment, and I mean this exact moment, there's a 78-year-old grandmother in Tulsa, Oklahoma, who just finished praying for 3 hours straight. She doesn't know why, but she's been compelled to intercede like never before. Something stirring in her spirit about the 28th of June. In Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a Vietnam veteran Purple Heart recipient has been having the same recurring dream for weeks. He sees a great awakening sweeping across America, starting with the elders, the forgotten ones, the discarded generation that society thinks is past its prime. In Brooklyn, New York, just 15 miles from where I'm speaking to you now, an 82-year-old retired schoolteacher has been feeling such an urgency to fast and pray that her own family thinks she's lost her mind. but she knows what they don't. God's not done with her yet. You see, dear one, what you've been feeling isn't depression. It isn't loneliness. It's recognition. Your spirit is recognizing the call of other spirits across this nation who carry the same fire, the same burden, the same divine restlessness that's been keeping you up at night. Remember Elijah, that mighty prophet who stood against 850 false prophets on Mount Carmel and called down fire from heaven. After his greatest victory, he ran into the wilderness, collapsed under a tree, and begged God to let him die. He cried out, "I am the only one left, and now they are trying to kill me too." But God had news for Elijah. Listen to what the Almighty told him in 1 Kings 19:18. "Yet I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed down to Baal, and whose mouths have not kissed him." 7,000. Elijah thought he was the last man standing, but God had preserved a remnant 7,000 strong. And beloved, if God preserved 7,000 in Elijah's day, how many do you think he's preserved in ours? How many senior saints across America are stirring with the same spiritual electricity you feel in your bones? Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. You're not too old. You're not too late. You're not forgotten. You are part of the greatest spiritual army this nation has ever seen, and you don't even know it yet. But God knows it. He's been positioning you for decades. Every heartbreak that didn't destroy you, every financial struggle that didn't break you, every loss that didn't defeat you, it was all preparation for this moment. This, the 28th of June, awakening. The devil has been whispering lies in your ear. Your time is over. Your influence is gone. You're just waiting to die. But I'm here to tell you that's the voice of hell, not heaven. God's not putting you out to pasture. He's calling you to the battlefield. Think about it. Who has more time to pray than you do? Who has less to lose and more faith to gain? Who understands suffering enough to intercede for a broken generation? Who remembers what this country was like when God was still welcome in our schools, our courts, our culture? You do. The remnant does. And here's the part that's going to blow your mind. This isn't just about you receiving breakthrough. God's not just preparing you to be blessed. He's preparing you to be a blessing. Because someone else's miracle is locked inside your obedience. Someone else's healing is waiting on your prayers. Someone else's breakthrough is buried in your willingness to say yes to God one more time. That grandson who won't speak to you because of your faith, your obedience on the 28th of June might be the key that unlocks his heart. That daughter who's walked away from God, your intercession might be what brings her home. That neighbor who thinks Christians are crazy, your transformation might be the testimony that saves their soul. You think God woke you up at 4 a.m. to pray for yourself? No. He woke you up because someone in intensive care needed an intercessor. Someone contemplating suicide needed a prayer warrior. Someone about to make the worst decision of their life needed your spiritual covering. This is bigger than your personal comfort. This is bigger than your retirement plans. This is bigger than your doctor's reports or your bank account or your family's expectations. This is about the destiny of a nation hanging in the balance, and God has chosen people like you, battle-tested, faith-proven, Holy Ghost-filled seniors to stand in the gap. The young generation is lost in their phones. The middle-aged are drowning in debt and distraction. But you have what money can't buy: wisdom, experience, and time to seek God's face. From the hills of Tennessee to the plains of Nebraska, from the beaches of Florida to the mountains of Colorado, God's remnant is stirring. Grandmothers are getting prayer burdens they can't explain. Grandfathers are having dreams they can't forget. Widows and widowers are feeling a fire they thought died with their youth. But here's the critical question that will determine everything. When the 28th of June arrives and God calls his remnant to action, will you answer? Or will you stay comfortable in your recliner, watching the world burn while heaven waits for your yes? Because, beloved, ready or not, the moment of truth is coming. Chosen one, your time is now. My dear friend, as we reach the end of this sacred moment together, I need you to remember 3 unchanging truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, the 28th of June is not about fear, it's about awakening. God is not shaking your world to destroy you, but to position you for the greatest chapter of your life. Second, you are not alone in this calling. From coast to coast, God's remnant is stirring. While the world sleeps, His chosen ones are awakening to their divine purpose. And third, your age is not a limitation, it's your greatest qualification. Every year you've lived, every trial you've survived, every prayer you've whispered in the dark has been preparing you for such a time as this. Beloved, God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't discarded you. He hasn't put you on a shelf to collect dust while the younger generation takes the lead. No, He's been saving you for this moment, when wisdom matters more than energy, when faith matters more than youth, when your seasoned prayers carry the weight of decades. You are part of something bigger than yourself, a community of believers who understand that gray hair is a crown of glory, that wrinkles tell stories of God's faithfulness, and that the prayers of the elderly move heaven in ways that shake the earth. This community exists right here, in this very comment section. You're surrounded by fellow warriors who have walked similar paths, who have questioned their purpose, who have wondered if their best days were behind them. But look, you're all here, drawn by the same Spirit, called by the same God, prepared for the same moment. So let me ask you this, dear one. What if everything you've been through, every heartache, every disappointment, every moment you thought God had forgotten you, what if it was all preparation for your greatest victory? What if your breakthrough isn't behind you, but standing right in front of you, waiting for the 28th of June? Before you leave this sacred space, I want to pray over you, not as a stranger, but as someone who believes in the destiny God has placed upon your life. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and receive these words as if I'm standing right beside you. Heavenly Father, I thank you for every precious soul who has stayed until this moment. Lord, you see them, the widow in Nebraska who cries herself to sleep, the grandfather in Texas who feels forgotten by his own family, the grandmother in Maine who questions if her prayers still matter. Father, speak to their hearts right now. Remind them that you have not forgotten their name, their address, their tears, or their dreams. God, I pray that you would break every chain of loneliness, every whisper of defeat, every lie that says they're too old or too late. Father, release fresh vision, new strength, supernatural health, and divine purpose over their lives. Let the 28th of June be the day when heaven opens over them like never before. Lord, surround them with your angels, fill them with your peace, and remind them that their latter days will be greater than their former days. In Jesus' mighty name, let every person watching this feel your presence right now. Let them know they are loved, they are chosen, and their story is far from over. Amen. Now, dear one, don't let this moment pass in silence. I want you to be part of this family. In the comments below, tell us where you're watching from. Tell us how this message has touched your heart. Ask for prayer if you need it. This community will stand with you. And if this video has stirred something in your spirit, please share it with someone who needs to hear this truth. Maybe it's another senior who feels forgotten. Maybe it's a friend who's struggling with purpose. Maybe it's a family member who needs to understand that God's plans for their elders are good. Thank you for watching until the very end. Thank you for opening your heart to receive this word. Thank you for being part of this remnant that God is raising up across America. If this message has blessed you, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We're building a community of believers who refuse to give up, who know their God-given purpose, and who understand that their best days are not behind them but ahead of them. Remember, chosen one, You are loved, you are called, and you are never, ever alone. Until we meet again, may the peace of God guard your heart and the fire of His Spirit ignite your purpose. God bless you richly.